All right, it's showtime. Hey, all right, tonight we're going to slow this down and take a real look at what's happening inside of British Columbia school system, my friends, because there's a lot of noise out there, a lot of opinions, but not a lot of straight, honest timelines or lived experience. I wrote a script here for you guys, my friends, and this didn't just appear overnight. The ARC Foundation was created here in 2007. Over time, it partnered with BC Ministry of Education teachers groups and UBC to develop what's known now as SOGI 123, Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity Resources for Schools. By 2016, it was introduced. And by 2018, it had expanded across a lot of school districts across British Columbia. Now, officially, SOGI isn't a class. It's not one subject being taught. It's a set of tools, policies, and resources meant to support inclusion and reduce bullying inside schools. I think it's probably created more bullying than not because, but where the conversation really begins is how it actually looks inside the classrooms day to day, because what's written on paper and what people experience in real life aren't always the same thing. And that's why tonight matters, because instead of hearing from politicians, organizers, or headlines, or Jim or Andrew, we're hearing directly from someone who has just come out through the system. Before we get into this, if you're new here, my name is DrewCouver, and I'm here with my valued co-host, Jim McMurtry. Every Monday night, we bring you real conversations and stories from around the lower mainland, British Columbia, and across Canada. Boots on the ground, independent journalism, speaking with people and getting into what's actually really happening. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, like the video, and share it. It really helps support the work. We do have moderators in the chat, so jump in, be respectful, and please be part of the conversation. My guest tonight is not a child anymore, 19 years old, having just turned 19 a couple months ago, a recent graduate of a high school here in British Columbia, and someone who has agreed to speak about their personal experience. Identity is being kept private. The voice has been altered. Protecting young people matters. At 19, there's still a process. There is still in the process of figuring that out, my friends. And protection is important to me. What makes this conversation important is from a very early age, a guest was given a diagnosis, and from there describes being placed into a system, into a category that over time began to define how others saw this guest and how the guest was expected to see identity. Through high school, that path narrowed. The guest found placement within a specific identity group, and that's where things began to shift. Over the past 2 months, this guest has reached out to me. They reached out to me a couple months ago. There have been a number of conversations, thoughtful, detailed, and times difficult, and I have spoken to the guest's parents about what was experienced, how it impacted things, and where things stand today. So tonight tonight is not about telling people what I think. It's about listening. My friends, before let's get into this. Jimmy.
Nice to see you.
I read a script. I didn't do it very well, but I've got to get better. I'm learning. I'm not a great reader, but I'm learning. Jim, I introduced you to our guest a couple of days ago. We had a short conversation. What do you expect tonight? What do you expect from tonight? I know you've been looking forward to this. We've been trying to work on getting a student in, but of course, we're not going to bring kids into the YouTube channel. But this is a great one. What do you think is going to happen tonight, Jim?
Well, I'm incredibly excited by it. I've spoken to lots of young people, particularly high school students. In this case, a recent graduate at 19. Nobody, you don't hear these people on air. This is a very rare thing to get somebody to say things on air. So I'm incredibly delighted to have Patricia with us tonight, and I think this is going to be something worth really of value to hear the perspective of somebody in the system, somebody who's just gone through a high school and can, I don't mean to prejudge here, but I've known thousands of students. They're not happy either with all the manipulation, all the brainwashing, all the communist indoctrination, this is going to be exciting for me. So I have lots of questions, and I'm ready when you're ready, Andrew.
Well, you know what? Without further ado, let's bring our guest in. And I'm going to put guest right center. Uh-oh. Sounds like our guest is playing video games running around in their bedroom. Patricia, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
I hear a lot of background stuff going on. Are you on your table or something, moving around?
Here, let me just move my mic over a bit.
Kids
to
never get it
away
right.
from stuff.
I don't think Patricia went to school to learn how to use a mic and YouTube. But I'm sure I've had a lot of conversations with our guest tonight. You know, being diagnosed, I automatically assumed they're really smart with computers, but I'm just giving you a hard time. You're an adult now, so I'm allowed to razz you. Are you there?
Yeah, sorry, it's just this streaming app's a bit laggy sometimes.
Okay, well, you don't worry about any of that. You just set yourself up there and just try not to touch the table or nothing, because it seems like your mic, there's a lot of static. So in order to like just diffuse that, let's just, stop moving around. I'm going to make you do 40s. 40s, for my guests that don't know what that means. It means running laps. I'm a football coach. Patricia, it's so nice to have you here tonight. I'm really excited. A bit nervous. You know, for those people that don't know, I was a private contractor, a contracted worker. A contractor. I wasn't a worker. I ran group homes for decades. I've coached children in football and basketball. I've coached Special Olympics. I've coached every type of kid there is. And when you reached out to me a couple of months ago after seeing what had happened in Tumbler Ridge, and I've spoken to your parents, there seemed to be a lot of conversation between us about your experience, and I thought to myself, well, heck, you know, maybe this is something that Jim and I could get on here and have a conversation with you. So again, I'm really grateful for that you're here, and I'm gonna actually just allow Jim, because he's the school teacher. You both have more experience being in the schools in the past 10 years. I'm gonna let him just sort of run the show tonight and ask questions. And again, please feel free to like say what you need to say. But again, please don't identify yourself. Don't identify what city you're from in British Columbia, and try not to talk about any schools or teachers by first names or anything like that. Do we got it? Those are the rules. You good, Patricia? Did you hear that?
Yeah, I'm good. It's good.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard that.
Another teacher talking. Go ahead, Jim.
I just would love, Andrew, if there's anybody that watching that has comments. It's hard for me to, I don't know if I have the same control as you do.
I'm going to put the comments on the stage, but I'm actually going to be watching them closely tonight.
I really appreciate that, because it helps to make it a larger discussion. Patricia, you know my story a little bit. What I didn't say to you is that I did have students that supported me. They're not students that I would ever ask. I have lots of students that would be willing to do things for me, but it's not something that I can ask ethically, to go up to people and say, look, I taught you 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 40 years ago. And I'd like you to defend me, and I'd like you to say, you know, the school system is moved in the wrong direction and so forth. But I don't do that. So this situation is a little different, because you have come toward Andrew and to this show. And the first question I'd like to ask you, when you were in the school system, so I know recently turned 19, were teachers asking you what your pronouns are? They were asking you what your pronouns are.
Pronouns? Yeah, that was in very often in the schools at the start of every school year. At the start of each class, you would get a sheet, usually that would ask you a couple questions, and at the top of it would always be pronouns. And at the school, there was a pride club, so they would go around every year. Or they went around one year with this form for everyone to fill out with to put in your pronouns, and then a week later they would give out buttons.
You talked to me about these buttons, and I just want to let everyone understand the age and when Soji and all that stuff really happened. So as a 19 or a 20 or 20, I know this because my son is 20, turning 21 this year. Soji really wasn't in the schools when Patricia was in elementary school. It was just being introduced in grade 6 and 7 and 5. So some of the schools run by but Soji was allowed to be in the schools. It was introduced by the school board trustees in their area. So, for instance, I live in Vancouver. So the school board here the school trustees would tell the superintendent, we're going to introduce Soji. And then the superintendent would send it to all the principals. Now, it was up to the principal whether or not they allowed Soji to come into the schools. I'm fairly certain now that Soji is mandated in the schools. I'm not 100% on that. But so there are some elementary schools out there that are hardcore Soji, and there are some that aren't. So I don't know, Patricia, if your elementary, do you remember your elementary being part of that movement, or was it really just when you went to high school? And I think when you went to high school, if my memory's correct, grade 8, did you go to school in grade 8, or was it grade 9 that the schools were shut down? Just so that we can go forward and have some context with time.
The schools were shut down around grade 7 for the mostly, and in grade 8.
Okay, so they were shut down.
So different
before
systems, like they were trying out different systems to get people to only do a couple classes at a time to try and minimize contact during the lockdown stuff.
You're awesome, Patricia. So before grade 6, there wasn't, you don't remember all this gender stuff.
There wasn't really a lot of that back then. There was a bit of stuff about the natives, but that
really?
was it.
What was that? Jim's eyes just lit up like a flame. I'm not sure if you can see us, Patricia, but I think Jim may want to talk shortly about that. Jim, do you have any questions about the elementary part?
If I could just, so the thing is, in the school system now, they ask kids in kindergarten what their pronouns are. So a lot of the upset isn't really to do with the high school kids. It's the younger kids who aren't ready for this sexualization. I just asked a couple of questions further on to do. Some people call it gender theory or ideology. What year did you in high school did you study about sexual alternatives, about transsexuality, about pansexuality, about homosexuals, about sex between people of the same sex and so forth? What class and what grade did that come up?
Sexuality, I believe, I don't remember too much of that being brought up in elementary, but I know for sure it all really kicked into gear at the start of high school in grade 8. Like at the start of grade 8, they put up a big pride flag over the school cafeteria, and there were pride stickers on every door in the school. Some classes put up pride flags in their classrooms.
So pride stickers, what would happen? So what was the name, first of all, of you said that there's a club that they usually have names like Rainbow Club or Gay Straight Alliance. There's various names for these clubs in school that push alternative sexuality. What was the name of the club at your school?
No, I don't know about that. because certain districts will have certain clubs.
Okay, we won't talk about. Okay,
No
okay,
problem.
so okay, yeah, and gay
Good
straight.
thing I'm here. So I just
No,
want to make sure the privacy of this person.
no, I think
It's all good, Jim. All good, Jim.
quite
I'm
an
just here to
important role.
moderate.
So when there was a child at this in the high school, Patricia, who was clearly transsexual or transitioning, did you feel that the teachers were neutral, or were they excited and encouraging these transitions?
Transitions. The teachers were very, very supportive of those transitions. There were many, many openly trans kids in the school who were hiding it from their parents, but were openly accepted, encouraged, and enabled by the teachers. Like there was this one, what do you
Be
call it?
careful.
It's a girl being a boy. He was girl being a boy. She was she would openly talk about wanting to get those top surgeries to cut her stuff off up later, and it was they'd actively go to the teachers before like parent teacher conferences or before events that the parents would be attending to make sure that the teachers didn't reveal that the kid was trans to the parents.
Well, that's an excellent point, because that's something else that a lot of us feel is unethical. Keeping parents in the dark about something as significant to a person's life as one, and of course, one in my view can't change sex. So this is just it's a fraudulent exercise in dress up. But the next question to do with gender, and then I'd certainly like to get into indigenization and the putting kids in race buckets and so forth. But did you feel yourself that there was any encouragement by any of classmates or teachers or the administration for you to consider that maybe you're not in the right body, or you may not be heterosexual, or that you need to be a bit more adventurous sexually?
So I want to actually ask the question in just in a different way, okay, if I can, Jim. So Patricia, just without saying any names again, right? Was there any administrative staff or teachers, not the one-to-one workers or the youth counselors or anything like that, but any of the kind of the administration or teachers, were they pushing that on kids or pushing it on you? I've seen you. You definitely look like you're the sex you are. I don't know if anyone was trying to push that on you. Was there? Yes or no?
But pushing, not really. The only thing you really had was in the school counseling offices, they'd always have that gender unicorn poster up on the walls. That would be in all the counseling rooms.
Okay, so that's good. That was a great question, Jim, and thanks for letting me segue in there. So again, families, parents, if you're listening to this, the best fight for this is when you're raising your kids. Raise them correctly, sit down at the dinner table, ask them what's going on in the schools. How are you doing? Is there anything I can support you with? That's what we need to do. I think the strongest kids are created by strong parents, if that makes any sense, Jim.
Yeah, absolutely. And Patricia, then there's a number of areas that I'd like to ask you about, and it's really, again, honored and delighted and that you're with us, because I don't understand the generation. I'm telling you, man,
Jim's really old.
In the late 60s, early 70s. We were loud. We were always questioning authority. We were out in the street and so forth. It was a time of protest. It's very different today, but I think it's really unfortunate, because I think young people are being hoodwinked by a lot of authority figures and being led down a long path by Pied Pipers. So the last one for me on this subject is, if you knew anybody that joined one of these Gay Straight Alliance or whatever, the Rainbow Clubs, whatever the club was in the school for kids who were, again, unconventionally sexually, or thinking that there is a need for them to question ordinary sexuality, and were they given things like free pizza, free pop, a place to always go and eat their lunch? Was it any way rewarded? I know high school kids, so many of them, you put food in front of them and they go crazy. I think I'm no different as a teenager myself. And young people are growing and they're hungry often and so forth. But I just wanted to know, do you know anything about the goings on in your school's club?
With stuff like free food and those kind of rewards, there was a little bit in that the Pride Club thing had pizzas once in a while, but it was mostly more for the native stuff. Like there was a whole room full of popcorn and pizza and chips and everything, like an entire shelves full of it for the natives. But I don't think we had any native students at the high school.
So
Sorry,
that's an interesting one. Just let me get in here, Jim. So are you saying that in your high school, you'd walk down the hallways and there'd be like a club room, they have a, that I went to basketball and football and stuff, so that's where my clubs were. But there'd be rooms that they'd have, like the counseling area may have more resources for the instruction or understanding of what this whole trans stuff is, and there would be food in there. Like they were like kind of offering that as like a token of like, hey, do you want to come in this room? Because there's a lot of kids out there that they see a pizza, they're not eating their ham and cheese sandwich at school from their mom and dad's. But if they see popcorn or pizza, they're going in. So was that being offered in that sense?
I think the Pride Club did have some free pizza things once in a while, but it wasn't too often.
Okay.
But
there
was
have, some.
I guess
there was some, but it wasn't like they were trying to like, hey, come, want to have some pizza? Want to have some pizza, kids? Come in this room, and then we can start talking about what it is we want to talk about. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Do you understand that?
Yeah, my school.
There wasn't.
Sorry, go ahead.
There wasn't a lot of stuff like that with the gender stuff and the sexuality stuff.
There was no bribing to come into the sexuality classroom then. It was just trans flags everywhere and stickers and all that stuff.
No, and that's, again, every school is different, because the schools that I was in, it was just. Sorry, Patricia?
Yeah, I was saying the counseling rooms did have some were kind of bribing, because they had the granola bars in them for free.
The counseling centers.
It's like if you went to go get the granola bars, you'd have to go where like the apples. If you wanted to get the apples or granola bars, you'd have to go right past the pronoun pins and the thing of condoms.
Oh yeah, I've seen a lot of these. This is Jim. Here's a question: did they give condoms out in your high school, Jim?
Well,
do you remember?
All boys school, so.
Oh, you're in all boys school. Well, so they give out condoms at Saints. Jim's so old he doesn't remember, but I remember. That's when we didn't have condoms. We could ask, and I know the counseling. Wait a second! Holy shit! I'm having PTSD. My counselor.
There's no high school. There's no high school in Canada, public high school, that I have ever heard of before now, that gives out condoms to kids outside. A visitor coming in and doing a sex ed presentation. They tried it in Surrey about 20 years ago, and the parents made such a fuss. There was a vending machine that had condoms in it, and it was quickly removed. So this is a very unusual thing.
My counselor gave me condoms.
No, but this is different from the school doing it. So what I'm trying to establish here is the school may have a policy and say we don't do these things, but if you have people in the building that are handing out condoms and handing out pins, trans pins and that sort of thing, then and using food as inducements, I think it's really troublesome because there's nobody in the school going, here, this is a heterosexual pin, or this is a pin for Christianity where we believe that your focus should not be on dating and intercourse while you're in high school. I mean, the problem with bombarding kids with information is they're always going to get bombarded. But what you want to do in a school is make sure that it's fair, that you shouldn't feel there's something wrong with you if you are not experiencing sex, if you're heterosexual, if you're and this is what's wrong with the school. They become hypersexualized. I think this is really awful. Just so not to lose it, Patricia, when you said there were rooms and you said two things. You said you didn't see or identify. You identified transsexuals at your school and presumably gay kids and so forth, but you didn't know that there were any Indigenous kids at the school, and yet you saw that there was. You mentioned popcorn and pop and so forth. So there's a lot of offerings. So who took advantage of those?
Oh, we know, Jim.
I'm not too sure. I didn't see a lot of people going to take advantage of it. Though
now I do know
there might have been some, because I remember when they had the Kamloops announcement, they did have a pizza party where it's everyone who was like native was allowed to go out of class and go get free pizza while everyone else had to stay and do their.
Okay, that's a key thing for me, Andrew, if I may just pursue this. So how did you feel? Patricia, my understanding is that you're not native. So how did you feel about the kids based on ancestry being able to get pizza and most not? Did you feel that was right?
It seemed a bit racist because you were putting people in boxes based on what their ancestors were.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm trying not to feed you, because this is obviously, you don't know me well, but this is something that's very important to me. I think it's that every child in a classroom or school should not be discriminated against on the basis of outward characteristics, birth characteristics, and even more obscene, one's ancestors. So you identifying as racist is wonderful. The next thing, were you given surveys in class in high school, or at any time, asking you what your race is?
There was no surveys like that asking about my race.
Okay.
Let me jump in, Jim. Did you have at the beginning of the school year, did you have to identify you were a he, she, or she, he, or it, or cat, or an Indigenous person, or a white person, or a settler? Did you have to write it down anywhere to identify? For the school, for the education system?
At the start of every school year, in each class.
Yeah, did they try to get
high school class every year? Yeah.
What did they do
every year at the start of high school? For each class, you would be given a handout that asked what your pronouns were at the very top, and then asked if you had any disabilities or this or that.
Now, I'm going to interrupt you, Patricia. When you put your information
some of it was normal, how are you doing in this class in pre? Sorry, what was that?
Were you? I know we've met now, and I've met with your parents. I'm fairly certain of your sex. I'm fairly certain you're either a boy or a girl. you're not confused in that regard. When you put down your sex, did anyone ask you, "Oh, are you sure?" Or you can put, or did they say you can put whatever you want, or we implore you to like do what you feel?
Uh, what was there was that you you could serve
Kind of.
those question sheets at the start of the year. You could
Okay,
also
so
put down what pronouns and name you wanted to be referred as in class, and what pronouns and name you wanted to be referred to when the parents were around.
that's an actual document that they had at your school with that question. Like, so guests, if you're in here listening, this is the facts, right? Like, this is I'm killing it. Sometimes Jim, I just feel like I'm killing it. The thing is like you get to have an opportunity here to like, I get to have an opportunity to, I'm gonna pipe my own horn here. I'm gonna toot my own horn. I've been working with kids for decades, 30 something, 36 years, and I'm 54. This is what I've done my whole life. And to have had happen to me what happened to me in the work that I've done, to be able to buy a camera and start going out and talking to people about what's going on, it's just gotten a bit livelier and a bit bigger for me. And I'm super happy and stoked that this channel is growing. I'm super happy and stoked that I've met people like Jim and Francis and Dallas and John Rustad and Julian. I met MPs. I've met so many people. I've traveled across Canada, and it just keeps getting bigger. And the support of all the people that watch this channel are super, super important to me. And the emails and the stuff that I get, I just had to toot my own horn, because it's just amazing to be able to have had a family reach out to me, and this kid wants to come on the channel and have a conversation. So I'm grateful that I'm able to moderate it. Jim, we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but before we go any further, there was a question that I wanted to bring up, and I'm not sure, Pat, if you can see this, but there's a question here from one of the people, Redwater. What was your sex ed class like when you were in school? Can you talk a little bit about that?
It changed a bit over the school years, but at the start, one of the big things was it was showing like in the early grades, like 8, 9, and 10, or 8, 9, it was about putting on condoms with the instructor putting them on their arm to show you that they were stretchy, and then just talking a bit about that. And then in grade 10, they started to talk about pornography to the kids, about like body standards, and it's okay to, I guess, body positivity, where it's okay if you don't look like what the people in the videos look like. And
Because
then
the
I heard
pornos
from
are
other
sexy
in grade
people.
11, they did a big presentation. In the grade 11, they did a presentation to the whole school, where they showed putting on, where it showed like instructional videos with, I think, like mannequins on how to put on male and female condoms. And then it only got worse for the younger kids later on, because when I was in my last year of school, I knew people in the younger grades, like grade 8s and grade 9s, and they were telling me what their sex ed classes were like. And in there, the instructors were saying that porn addiction is not real, and they would have girls in the younger classes, like grade 8 and grade 9 girls, practice putting condoms on dildos. And then one of the girls actually tried to take one of the dildos home.
I heard. I actually, and it's in a Jim, Jim, if I become prime minister, I told everyone, I've been telling everyone, I'm going to make dildos and vibrators illegal. Anyways, and the school close in the lower mainland, I'm going to say it's in Burnaby. There's a high school in Burnaby, like, because I coach kids, and it's so funny. There was the funniest part, the teachers brought in these dildos because they stopped using like cucumbers and pieces of vegetables to teach kids how to put a condom on. So they thought it would just be best to like buy dildos, not vibrators, but just dildos. Difference is a dildo. I don't even know what the fucking difference is. I've seen a few in my time, but I don't know what the hell I don't even know how to turn one on. But the girls stole the dildos in the high school. And what happened is one of the girls' parents, now I know this family, one of the girls' parents phoned me because I actually worked with this group of kids in football. And for the first time in 26 years, I didn't know the answer. I didn't know how to deal with it. It just didn't make any sense. Why would the teachers union be buying dildos with the taxpayers' money to teach kids now in grade, I think you said, Patricia, grade 8. Is that correct? Is that what you heard?
Yeah, I heard it from a grade, I think they were grade 8 and 9.
Wow.
If I could do the next question, Patricia, for you, were they ever talking about anal sex?
Yeah, let's not get into that. You know what? I don't want to talk about that.
Okay, fine.
Yeah,
fine. But but they're talking to kids about it. So
listen, Jim, I'm gonna tell you something. Jim, there's no such thing as ANALSEX, because in order to have sexy sex, you don't use the outshoot. Sorry. There's no such thing as anal, that thing. Just, yeah, sorry.
So, Patricia, the next thing that curious about this is you said, and I just would like to record myself repeating what you said. You said that in the high school where you were, up until a year or so ago, I presume, if you just turned 19, that in every class, it wasn't just at the school for once or whatever, it's in every class that you were asked what your pronouns were. And then you were also asked what your pronouns were for inside the classroom and for being at the school, and then what your pronouns are when your parents arrive, which is an interesting statement, because what it does is it admits that the school is hiding from parents something that's incredibly important to the development, the healthy development of a child, which is that the parents are aware of what what the child is. I don't understand this idea of the school wanting to hide from parents anything that's fundamental to a child. Anyhow, so the next thing is if I may quickly turn to my particular case relates a lot to what happened in Kamloops. Do you remember much what they were saying about residential schools? Do you remember if they talked about the graves in Kamloops? Do they say that children were tortured or murdered?
So time out. So we're gonna now, friends, in the comments and stuff, we're gonna stop. We're gonna slow down on the whole trans sort of talks, and we're gonna now segue a bit into the industrial revolution in relation to native issues and native topics, because this is let's go there. Go ahead, Jim. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure we made that segue so we don't go back and forth.
I appreciate it. Yeah. So thank you. I'm just really curious to know. As somebody who lost his job because I said something that there weren't kids being murdered by their teachers. Can I say that pointedly, Patricia? Did you learn almost 5 years ago that teachers in Kamloops murdered children, and there were some as young as 3 and 6-year-olds were used to bury classmates? There was a mass grave or graves. This is stuff that was in my school, that was in the schools I'd been in previously in different school districts. is what did you learn about residential schools, particularly with regard to Kamloops?
Well, all the school stuff actually started a lot earlier, around
So if you can hear me,
and what they would
so
describe is that
Patricia,
yeah,
if you can just slow down when you're talking a little bit, sometimes that will help the mic, because sometimes when you talk fast, it blanks out. So I'm not sure, I should have got you a good mic. I'm sorry about that. But if you can just slow down your talk, maybe it will help the mic be able to communicate to our guests. Thank you. Go ahead.
okay.
Do you need Jim to ask you the question again?
Early into elementary, they started to push the native stuff. They would say, what they would say is that every orange shirt, they would say that when there were too many kids in the schools, they would just take some out back and shoot them and then bury them. They would say this stuff early into elementary, long before Kamloops, and then also say they were being fed the worst quality food ever. And then it only got bigger when Kamloops happened, because then they were putting up memorials and increasing the size of the memorial every year and doing and then came the native credit too, where you had to read books and stuff and like short stories from about the schools or this or that, and even like we had to watch documentaries for projects about the schools and survivors making memorials and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So I just want to let all my viewers know again, I really appreciate everyone here watching, listening, and taking part of this conversation. Because we do have a young adult in the room, we are going to keep this short. So we are going to run for another about 20 minutes, and that's it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I'm actually going to close the chat comments down. And if you have any comments or any questions, you can send them to me, and I'll see them and I'll post them up about 5 to 10 minutes prior to ending. Thank you.
Can you hear me, Patricia?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so just specifically, so you're saying you've answered my question. This is so important for me. This is so important for your country, that what we're getting from you is testimony. Now, of course, I've heard it many times, but it just isn't on air. Testimony from you saying that teachers, and this is again before Kamloops in 2021. Teachers are already saying in the school system, that puts you in middle school at the time, that that it wasn't unusual for teachers who are priests and nuns to take kids around back of the school and shoot them and later bury them. Is that correct?
Yes, that is what they would say.
Was there any teacher did you have any teacher that said something that contradicted that? Or did you have a sense that all the teachers were pushing the same idea, that these schools were places of murder?
It was a scale of you went along with it and didn't push back, or you were a full pusher of it. Like in high school, the teachers for the native credits and some of the English department, they all had a lot of Turtle Island and orange flag stuff all around their rooms, their classrooms. And then some would even put up posters that would mock the national anthem and say "Our home on native land."
This was in high school or in elementary school?
High school.
High school, yeah. So none of this stuff. So Jim, again, right? Like the conversations I've had with Patricia and other people too, a lot of this stuff really didn't come in the elementary schools, I think, unless and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, because you're an expert here. it depended on the principal, it depended on the community, how much of that was being introduced in the elementary schools. But once after COVID happened, it was like a full on presentation every month, every day. You couldn't go into a high school or an elementary school without seeing stuff that was parallel to white man bad, and we did all these bad things with all these nurses and all these nuns, I'm sorry, and priests. Was that correct, Jim?
Oh, no, it's excellent. And thank you for saying that, because it became an hysteria. Patricia, just one more question pursuant to this. The land acknowledgements, how often did you hear land acknowledgements, and did anybody object to them? Anybody in the school object to them?
Can I ask you to remind our viewers, Patricia, of what happened at grade? I think you talked to me about going to a ceremony. I think it was in your 12th year. Maybe it was your grad, or maybe it was someone else's grad. There was something about some sailor song. Your parents were telling me about it. What happened there? And I think this is one of the reasons why this person reached out to me, because of how strong-willed they are in relation to what Canada is all about. Can you tell our viewers about that story?
Yeah. Well, one of the things is that with the graduation ceremony, they wanted to put on a native anthem first that you would have to stand up for. And only when that was done would they put up "O Canada." And people either didn't care or didn't say anything. Or I know some people who, I know at least one other student who really did not like it, but because they were a white, they were worried that they would lose their high school degree if they tried to resist it. So they just had to stand up for it too. But when the graduation came, I just sat down when they said, "Please rise for the native anthem." And then I stayed seated until "O Canada" started.
Good for
And
you.
to answer the other question about land acknowledgements,
I know.
they were often.
I know a gentleman that
every
ran. Just a second. I know a gentleman in his 50s. Actually, sorry, he's in his late 40s. Jim, you and I know him. I'm not going to use his name, but privately, he talked to me about something that happened in December, mid-December, at his child's concert, Christmas concert, and his child's in elementary school. When they did the land acknowledgement at the Christmas concert, this guy, who is a lawyer, he stood up at the concert and he gave the principal, when they did the land acknowledgement, their back. Jim, they just stood up and gave them their back. Now, after that night, after the concert, a lot of people came up and shook that person's hand. Notice how I'm not using he, she's or anything, right? Because I don't want to jeopardize my friendships. But it's really amazing that there's kids out there, and I've spoken to many kids over the time, Patricia and Jim, that are for this or they're against it, and there's some that just don't want to be a part of it. You know, it's a really sad situation. And what do you think's going to happen, Patricia? Do you think that this is going to go away with you talk to all of your friends about this stuff? Do you guys actually have conversations about this shit now that you're in university? I think you're in post-secondary. Does this stuff happen in post-secondary?
But post-secondary, I don't really stay around too much in the student areas too much to see it, but I know in the hangout areas, there are usually big sectioned off areas for the movement stuff. They have a big room with couches and everything for them, with the flags everywhere, and their own private Wi-Fi network that I think is paid for by the school.
Is this for the trans or for the indigenous people or the natives?
for the gays and the trans and those kind of things.
Oh, so those people that want to identify as something that isn't male or female. If you don't identify as male or female, there's a space for everyone else to go that's possibly confused about their identity.
If I could just, Patricia, and it's important for me to repeat what you've said because I just want to make it very clear. And my voice is a little clearer than yours because you're protecting your identity. But what you said is during the graduation ceremony in your last year and last semester of school, before the national anthem came on, they played a native anthem, and you didn't want to be part of that. You sat down, even though you were told, along with everybody else, to stand up. What is it in you, Patricia? What was it that said to you not to do that? I'm delighted that you didn't, because I think it's very important, because this is compelled behavior, compelled speech. Why did you not do that? What explains your gut reaction?
I just, when I looked at it, and it felt wrong. It's just, that's not my country. That's a foreign anthem being played in our country. I'll only stand up for two anthems: God Save the King and Oh Canada. I won't stand up for anything else because it's a foreign anthem. It's not our country's song.
I can't hear you, Andrew.
Thank you. Sorry about that. And then just quickly, the next question that goes with that, Patricia. Your friends, your community, maybe they're tight knitted. I'm not sure. I know that you were diagnosed with a developmental disability early on. Before we go, I just had this memorized. When you were in school, because you were diagnosed, I mean, I wasn't diagnosed with hyperactivity disorder, but I ran really fast everywhere, away from the police, away from everyone, the bad guys, and towards the girls. But when you're diagnosed with a disability, I do know that sometimes you're offered to be put in certain groups that maybe are not for the developmentally delayed groups. Were you introduced or put in any kind of groups like that as a result of having a diagnosis?
Yeah, they put us into this program at the school that was attached to some, I think it was like a nonprofit that was receiving funding from the health department. Where this program, on paper, it was supposed to be helping the kids who could function but were, had delays or whatever. But it really was more of just really just a lot of it was almost entirely gay and trans, and there was not a lot of talk about it, but there was definitely a bit of stuff like pronoun usage, and it was in a way sort of used as like a quote unquote safe space for the trans and the gays to go and talk about their things, like hiding from their parents, or girls dating other girls. It was well, it seemed like it was supposed to be for just people with delays. It really became a sort of pride thing with a lot of free food. Like that was
free food again. The free food
stuff from earlier was, although it wasn't in the main school stuff, it was really here because they gave like free pizza, popcorn, chips, and more.
Which is all just sugar. Do you like the dopamine? Because kids that are developmentally delayed or a little bit nerdy, they don't go out into the the park and run and throw balls and stuff like that. So what other better way to get kids hooked would be with food. I know that that's something that psychologists and psychiatrists use with children that get put into the hospital at the psychiatric units, the 3 or 4 that I've been in and part of over the land of the British Columbia. Um, when the kids have to go talk to the psychiatrist, they they won't talk to a psychiatrist, sit in a room with some dupe that's talking about their feelings and their shit. But what the psychiatrist always does, they always offer food. They always offer McDonald's, chicken, ketchup. It's all just shit so that it makes them feel good. And once they make them feel good, then they have them hooked. Jim, do you have any last questions? Because I want to segue out of here.
Make it the last question, if Will, and I'm just so delighted with Patricia. Patricia, so you're coming on the show. You're speaking about various things. I'd love to address other things, how they talk about our past, how they are banning, censoring literature and lowering academic standards, and so many different things. We didn't have time there, but we did talk about the Indigenous and the gender stuff. To me, as a teacher, a lot of students are like you, that they're seeing that there's something not right with politicizing curricula, with teachers. What it doesn't matter if it's a pride flag or a Nazi flag or a Russian flag or a Ukrainian flag, or it's just the idea that students are captive at school. And you don't take advantage of that as an adult, as the adult in the room, to say, look, kids, this is how you should think politically. Would you be able to just answer that? Do you believe it's a good idea for the schools in Canada to be going crazy about trans and gays and Indigenous people or Muslims or anything? Do you think that that is the purpose of a school?
Schools are supposed to prepare you for future education or to go into the workforce. They're not supposed to be a thing for politics. You pick up politics from your life experience and your family. And it's just one thing I'd really like to say is that although there's a lot of this stuff, I know there's a lot of students out there, or at least don't like what's going on, but are too scared to resist. Like when they wanted to do the native anthem at my graduation, this one white guy I know, he also really wanted to resist too, but he was scared that if he resisted, he would get his degree taken away. So he just stood up for the thing anyways. And then, but there are still cases like when they did the International Women's Day stuff, they did a presentation on equity one year. And what happened is they made it so clearly anti-man that the men just had a big uproar where they were all complaining. Like every man in the school was complaining about it, or almost every man, for like a good 20 minutes afterwards. So the school ended up backing down on International Women's Day and the feminism stuff and actually stopped doing presentations for International Women's Day.
Yeah, I've heard that happen in a big school in a central part of British Columbia that I'm very close with up in Prince. I'm just going to say Prince George. I've heard about that happening in Prince George. Jim, do you have any last things you want to specifically say to our absolutely amazing guest?
Yeah, just ask on the note, do you think students should be afraid to express themselves at school? Of all places in our society, a school, an educational institute, is where people are supposed to exchange ideas. Do you feel that it's wrong that there are a lot of kids that you know who are in high school with you who are afraid?
I don't know.
I don't think it's right that that the kids are afraid. They should be able to. We're a free country. We're a democracy. We're supposed to be able to say our opinions, but most people are too scared now that if you look at a lot of kids, they'll just go along with this stuff because they want to do a good grade, even if they don't believe in it. They believe that they have to follow the line or else their grades will be affected. And I've seen people who try to go against the line and end up having lesser grades as a result.
Yeah, it's very interesting, Patricia. This stuff, just so you're aware, this stuff happened years ago. Uh, I'm going to say about 15, 20, 25 years ago. When people would bully someone, this is where a lot of it, for me in my age, I'm only in my mid 50s. It started off with, if you were gay, you were wrong. It was wrong. And I think that from my understanding, it comes from the Bible, right? Because it's against the Bible. So back in the 80s, when all of this started segueing, there was a lot of what people would call, and excuse me if you've never heard this before, young person, but they'd go out into different communities throughout North America and do gay bashing. What that meant is dudes would go out and find gay men and beat them up, or try to beat them up, because there were some gay men that were actually quite strong. They'd fight back, and God bless those gay guys, because I know some of them that fought back and won, because that's just wrong inherently. It's just wrong to pick on anyone that you may perceive as less than or weaker than. It's just wrong. It's the worst thing to do. But this is for me when it really started, and then I started seeing, men lose their jobs for saying something, or not get promoted for saying something. And I specifically remember, I have a brother-in-law and I don't give a shit because he's gone to the left, and God bless you, Greg. But I'm going to just say it. I work with homeless. I don't work with homeless people. I stand for homeless people and people that are drug addicted on the street because they've lost everything. But this place out in Chilliwack, there was a homeless group beside the Salvation Army. I'm not sure if you remember this, Jim, but one of the senior city managers decided to hire a truck and fill up the truck with chicken poo and drop chicken shit all over this homeless encampment. It was horrible. Do you remember this, Jim?
Yes.
Yeah. So you know what happened, Jim? So this person in the stupid, did I swear? I didn't swear. I haven't said the F-bomb in this podcast, not once. Please, friends, just remember that. Did I swear? Did I say the F-bomb, Jim? Oh, fuck. I said it 3 times. So God bless. I did it once, so fuck, I can do it now more. So anyways, I tried really hard to not swear. But anyways, this guy, I can't remember his name. He didn't get fired. They were like calls to action to like fire this guy. He poured chicken poop on the homeless shelter. What happened to him in government, my friends, is he actually did lose his position in that ministry and got shifted over to a different ministry, and within 4 months got a raise. I don't know his name. I'm not going to say it, but God bless you, Greg, for telling me that story. So my brother-in-law, because there's a lot of this stuff going on, this government corruption, and I have a lot of I have a very strong belief that we are going to make it through this because of people like Patricia, because of all the kids I know, and I know of hundreds of kids. I know hundreds of kids that are still in elementary and high school, parents that communicate with me. I have thousands, probably thousands of, there's thousands of kids that I've worked with in group homes, in foster homes, in jails, in institutions, in homeless shelters, in community basketball, thousands. And I get so many people sending me phenomenal messages saying, Andrew, we so support you. Thank you so much for the work you're doing. And every once in a while, I get a message. Oh, and I wish I could show this. I got a message from a parent that I used to coach his kid, and I used to call his kid Thunder. we had two safeties on our football team, Jim, a strong safety and a free safety, right? So one on either side. So I would call them Thunder and Lightning. They were the smallest kids on the team, but they were just profoundly strong, and nothing was going to interfere with anything that they were doing. But one of the parents has certainly reached out to me on Facebook quite a few times in the past 2 months and said how left they are and how angry they are. And I believe, Jim, that we're going to get through this. You think we're going to get through this because of people like Patricia and other kids?
Yeah, I think Patricia is incredibly brave. The sad thing here is, of course, that she's probably still scared. I mean, still fearful in Canada, of all places, of expressing a view that's unpopular. So I just so delighted to have had her on, and I'm hoping that people in the audience, listeners, are going to realize that there are serious problems in schools, and some of the stuff is absolutely horrifying. But to me, of all the things that have been said, the most horrifying of all is just to hear that kids are scared. This is the most important thing to do in a classroom, in a school, is to make sure kids feel that they're safe. And they talk about that all the time. This is all safety, this, safety, that, but they don't mean it. They don't mean it if they're only allowing people with certain views, if they're only allowing children to grow up within certain lifestyles or political outlet. So I think it's an indictment of the school system.
They are making it safe, Jim. They're making it extremely safe for the teachers, for the administrators, just like the podcast we did last week about the 7, these stupid things, that they're the 7 points. What is it called, Jim? And we'll end here. I think I've got it here on
the priorities for the school district for 2006, 26, 27. And number one is indigenization, and
it's a mess. Patricia, thank you so much for coming on. I'll give you a call in about a half an hour. I'll give you and your parents a call. And thanks again so much. Do you have any last words? Do you have any last words for everyone?
I just want to say that although the things do seem bleak, is that the schools do eventually push back from the kids. Like when we had that Women's Day thing and everyone was in uproar over how sexist it was, the schools actually backed down and stopped doing the presentations against men. So there is pushback can work. If people push back hard enough, the schools will listen and they will stop.
Thank you so much, Patricia, for coming on, and thank you for coming on and pushing back here with your voice. I'm very grateful. Maybe in 6 months or a while, we'll have you back on as a real person with a real voice. But I can assure everyone here that this is Patricia's 19, so you don't even know if Patricia's a boy or girl, but Patricia is able to speak for Patricia, but I chose this. So if anybody's kind of like upset that they didn't see the face or the voice, trust that I am a mediator, trust that I have ethical standards, and trust that I don't think when you're 19 you're an adult. Try like 25. Anyways, Pat knows me well. Thank you so much for coming on, and God bless. We'll talk to you soon. God bless. Wow. Jim, I'm going to cry. I almost cried like 2 or 3 times. How are you feeling, Jim?
Well, I love what you said, Andrew. And I think you underestimate how valuable this is to bring a 19-year-old onto the show. So we're not just talking about stuff that, just air. And that this is a kid who's experienced this. And the most frightening thing for me, Andrew, is the fact that kids are giving their pronouns for when their parents aren't there and for when their parents are there. I'm thinking the responsibility for a child is with the parent, with the guardian. How dare the school go in between that? It's just so educationally wrong. You're there to support the parent.
Jim, do you remember this?
Yes.
Yes. I'm only 53, so I would graduated from elementary school when it was 1984, 1984, 1985. 1985, I graduated from grade 7. Should have when I was in 1984, but they kept me back in grade 2, not because of my academics or my brain cells, but because my sister, who is 19 months younger than, are you ready for this, Jim? Because my sister that is 19 months younger than me, Aaron, God bless you, I love you, I will take a bullet for you. They kept me back a grade because people were bullying my sister, and they knew if I was in the same grade as her, they'd stop bullying her. So instead of promoting her up to my grade and giving me the power and taking it away from the teachers, what they did, bro, is they reversed it, and they took me away from my friends and kept me back and punished me so that I could protect my sister. It made no sense. Like, the school system's just been crazy. DrewCouver was 6 foot, like DrewCouver was 6 foot and 200 pounds in grade 7. I was very tall. I was very skinny. You could see my bones. I didn't come from a rich family. We didn't eat a lot. I fought for everything. My best friend, Denby Doherty, we used to play cowboys and Indians and cops and robbers with real pellet guns, handguns, pellet guns, bro, pellet pew-pews. And my friend, I was just talking about this because his brother passed away, and then there's like this anniversary last couple days ago. And we were talking about it on Facebook because then we got shot right in the eye by his brother with a BB gun, and the pellet went behind his eye. So he had to get surgery. So my parents let me take a couple of days off of school to hang out with my bro Denby while he got the BB guns. Could you imagine that happening today? Dude he'd go to jail. Well, maybe for a couple of hours. He'd be released because we don't believe in jail anymore. We believe in identifying kids through a piece of fucking paper on a piece of paper with their scribble, and we have to let them know that, you don't have to tell your parents about this. What do you think, Jim?
I think that's a wrap. I love what you just said. I love your passion, man.
We're going to kill it, bro. We're going to just continue doing this. We're going to continue bringing people on. Again, and I'll end with this. If you know anything and you want me to disclose anything or find out about shit, I'm getting so many emails. I've now hired someone to help me out. I actually now have an assistant working 4 hours a day because the stuff that's coming into me is just over filtered. If you're watching and you're listening, and I'm not getting back to you, I have been a one-man show. But I believe, Jim, within the next 6 months, I'll be like a 5-man show. I'll be back to normal. I'll have people come and be on our side to support people like Patricia and kids, because they're coming up. That's the thing, Jim. And I'll close here. The fact is, all these kids that I know that I've coached over the past 4 or 5 years, and my son's part of that, they're all coming up and they're all pissed. And it's going to get real. Anyways, friends, God bless. Keep fighting the fight. Remember, talk to your children, talk to your families at the dinner table, put away the cell phones, turn the TV off, and buy a Scrabble.